Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the Model Railway News, this time for March, and I hope you've all got some refreshments ready to go because there is so much to get through today. An enormous number of updates and announcements have been made and I can't wait to get to all of these. So hope you're strapped in and ready to go. Let's get started with Dapol, who have made some really interesting updates this time. The first one in relation to their new 28XX Great Western 280 locomotive, that was a mouthful, which they announced last year. But now there's been an update. They say the model has entered the tooling phase, which tells us that the design work is now complete. And with the design work completed, Dapol have announced some new specs for this model, and the big one is that this locomotive is going to have a die-cast boiler in addition to die-cast footplate and chassis. So that means this will be an almost all-metal locomotive. The downside though is that Dapol have put the price of this model up quite substantially. So before the RRP was £189.99 and the new price is £220 RRP, which is about a 15% increase. So the new retailer price, if you get a decent discount, is now around £187. So I think it's a real pity that we've now lost that really good price that was initially announced for this model. You used to be able to order these for £161, so it feels a lot more expensive now. However, on the grand scheme of things, I still think the price of this model is pretty good, especially compared with some of the other new Great Western locomotives that have been announced recently. We're going to talk about some of those later on, but most of them are much more expensive than this and they have similar specs. So yeah, this model is more expensive than it used to be, but it's still, I think, quite competitively priced. Next up, they've announced the return of their LMS Stania coaches in 00. Now, these coaches were first produced by Airfix absolutely decades ago. I think it was in the 80s that they were last seen under the Airfix brand, and then Dapol have since produced these for many years as well. I think the last time Dapol produced them was back in 2018, and apparently back then they were very popular. Now though, they are back and Dapol have revealed some improvements and modifications. So these coaches are now going to have separately fitted underframe detail, including a new dynamo and vacuum cylinders, etc. The way the bogies are fixed to the chassis has been redeveloped as well, and these are now going to have newly UK produced metal wheels instead of the old plastic ones. And most importantly, I suppose, these coaches are now going to support NEM couplings. And Dapol have posted quite a bit of detail on their website on how they've achieved these modifications. And it looks like a really fascinating process. So it's not a new tooling. They are using the old tools, but they're modifying them to reflect these new improvements. They also say that the tooling for the window glazing is going to be repolished as well, just to make sure that the windows are as transparent as possible. So these coaches may be more refined than when we last saw them, but they're still going to be extremely basic coaches, and thankfully this is reflected in the price. So the full RRP is only £35 for these, and at the retailers you can get them for just less than £30 a piece. So these coaches are going to be very basic. They don't have loads of details and features to them, but they're also about half the price of your typical new tooled coach with all the bells and whistles, making these a great budget option, of course. So I think it's great to see this. You know, Dapol haven't just brought back an old, outdated model without sufficiently fixing the thing. They have made changes to it so that at least it kind of fits in with a modern layout. And they've got a price which is much better than most coaches these days. So really glad to see this. Affiliate links down in the description. Up next, speaking of budget models, Dapol have announced the next batch of their branded box vans. This time the theme is the Titanic Brewery, with a few different variations. There's the Atlantic Red Ale, as you can see here, the Cappuccino Stout, and also White Star Ale. And these are available to pre-order at the usual price for this sort of thing, so £11.05 for the pristine version, that's in 00, and then there's an O-scale version as well, which is £47.18, again quite a competitive price for O-scale. So this past month has been quite a big month for Great Western modelers because there's a new locomotive just been announced, and it's also been a big month for Rapido because they're the ones that announced it. So, coming to 00 very soon is the Great Western County class, the 460 variety, not the 440 one. And these locos were iconic because of their single large splasher instead of individual ones covering the wheels, which makes them quite immediately recognisable, I think. And this is a locomotive that Hornby have made available for a number of years, and in fact Hornby's model is coming back quite soon, I believe, in this train pack, as you can see. But the thing is, this model dates back a number of years, decades and decades in fact, whereas this new model by Rapido, of course, will be all new. They've announced 10 different versions initially in a variety of different liveries, and the specs include accurate detail variations for each of these models available. They're also going to have etched nameplates provided where applicable. They're going to have the firebox flicker effect, which I like to see, sprung buffers of course, 21-pin DCC sockets, stay alive capacitors apparently fitted to all models, which is nice to see, plus 2 factory fitted speakers for high quality sound. For the DCC ready model, the full RRP is £249.95 or £212.45 at the retailers. So as you can see, this is significantly more expensive than Dapol's quite similarly spec'd 2800 locomotive in 00 scale, which is why I say I don't think the new price of Dapol's loco is too bad. So yeah, quite an expensive model from Rapido compared with the competition yet again. Fingers crossed though this will be worth it. It seems like a very high spec model, and if this is produced to high standards, it should be a winner. So yeah, looking forward to that one. Affiliate links in the description, of course. Up next, Rapido made yet another rolling stock announcement as well. This time it is the Great Central 15-ton brake van, which was first introduced back in 1903. And I always get excited when Rapido announce a new brake van because of course a brake van affords all sorts of opportunities for amazing detail. And in this case those opportunities don't seem to have been missed. Details include full underframe detail including brake gear, separate parts including handrails and lamp irons, plus a fully detailed interior with a guard's desk, stove, sandboxes and lockers, plus they're including some lamps which you can either stow away, presumably inside the brake van, or they can be deployed on the lamp brackets. Great to have that choice, I think. And as usual, these models are running on proper separately fitted metal bearings. They're producing this model initially in a variety of liveries ranging from the original Great Central Grey, they've got the L&ER Bauxite, several BR liveries, and even an NCB livery, which is a nice, slightly off-the-wall version. The RRP for this brake van is £46.95 though, and it's available at the retailers for £39.90. So it's extremely pricey for a brake van, but it's also very highly spec'd. So I think if they pull this off, this could well be one of the greatest brake vans we've ever seen in 00 scale. Really looking forward to seeing how this turns out. As for updates on existing Rapido projects, they've revealed engineering samples for their new Midland 483-440 locomotive, demonstrating that tooling is now complete. This is obviously a major production milestone. As you can see, these samples show a wealth of detail, really coming together nicely, and apparently the next step is that they're going to be assessing the details and the mechanism of these samples in order to make any changes to the model before signing off on it. They also showed off a 3D printed sample of their new Caledonian 123, which they announced just a month ago or so. Obviously, there's not much to go on here because this is just a 3D print, so it gives us a rough impression of what the model will look like and nothing more. Nevertheless, it does give you an idea of how it will look compared with the likes of the Sterling single. And I don't know about you, but this has really whetted my appetite for this loco. Very exciting indeed. Up next then, a bit of a surprise from Bachmann, who have just made 2 new announcements completely out of the blue, once again outside of their usual quarterly announcements. So the first one is this, a completely new LMS 20-ton brake van. And they've even got samples on display already which showcase the ton of detail that these are going to have, including wire handrails which look to be good quality, turned metal buffers, not sure if they're sprung or not, and even a chimney which is turned metal as well. They've also got extensive veranda detail, which their photos show quite nicely, plus a great level of interior detail considering this is 00 scale. There's 5 versions which have been announced to begin with, ranging from the earliest LMS grey liveries, BR Bauxites, and even a BR Engineers grey and yellow. But the elephant in the room, of course, is that Hornby also produce a 20-ton LMS brake van, and they only launched theirs about 5 years ago, and it's pretty good. You can check out my review up here. The other thing about the Hornby van is that it's much cheaper. So the current Hornby RRP is £32.99, and Bachmann's new RRP is £44.95. That's over 35% more expensive. At the retailers, it works out at £38.20. Admittedly though, Bachmann's brake van does look better than Hornby's. It's got that turned metal chimney, which the Hornby one didn't have. The veranda detail, looking at the photos, seems to be better, and quite possibly the interior is going to be better as well. But is it truly wise for Bachmann to introduce a new LMS 20-ton brake van right after Hornby did, but at a much higher price? Not convinced. After all, Hornbys haven't exactly flown off the shelves, have they? I bought mine last year for £14.99, and Model Railways Direct currently has the Hornby model at £11.02. So it's a very interesting, I think interesting is the politest word I can think of. It's an interesting choice that Bachmann have decided to do this. And I use the word choice because obviously this wasn't an accident. Hornby did theirs a long time ago, 5 years ago, so it's not as though Bachmann were accidentally developing this brake van at the same time. Yeah, very interesting, isn't it? They're having to flog Hornby's brake van for a tenner because presumably there wasn't enough demand for those to sell at the higher prices. And now Bachmann announce a far more expensive brake van at that higher price. You know, is there going to be demand for this? I'd certainly be interested to see, but if I was Bachmann, I don't think this is an investment I personally would have made, but hopefully they know best. They've also announced yet another EFE rail project. This time it's very much outside the box. They've announced the LBSC Isle of Wight coaches. So these coaches used to run over on the main line under the LBSC, but then they were rebuilt for use on the Isle of Wight, and that's what we see with these models. Details include separately fitted wire handrails, as you can see from the photos. They're going to have separate lamp brackets as well, steps, which seem to be etched, or at least made of metal. They've also got separately fitted wiring and roof furniture. And here's a quote from the spec. They say each model will be decorated inside and out to complete the look. So hopefully that means these models will have fully painted interiors. That would be really good to see. The RRP is £269.95 per pack, or £229.45 at the retailers. And these are 4 coach packs, so this works out at £57.36 per coach, which I don't think is that bad really, given how niche these coaches presumably are. But also at that price, you'd want these coaches to have every single possible feature. And I've not seen any mention of working lighting on these coaches yet. Maybe they will have it, it's just not been mentioned. I think it would be a pity at that price though if these didn't have working lighting. Anyway, a really interesting project, and if you'd like to check these out, I do have affiliate links down in the description. The next update comes from Cavalex with regards to their new Class 60. Now, there have been several reports of noisy running from these Class 60s. Mine was noticeably very noisy, and other people that I've spoken to had the same issue too. Well, they've posted an update about this. They say that only a small percentage of the production run have this issue. I guess we must have been the very unlucky ones then. They say the issue has been caused by the models having too tighter tolerances between the gears and the axles. To fix the issue, they've had new axles and keeper plates produced, and they're offering a free fix to anybody who's had an issue. They say to contact the retailer you bought it from if you're having trouble, and they can supply you the parts. They also say that they'll be posting an instructional video to their YouTube channel to explain how to effect the fix. So on the one hand, I think it's a real pity that this has happened at all. Generally, I prefer manufacturers to take their time, do proper testing to make sure that models produced are right. After all, this is not an issue we see very often, so it should have been avoidable. On the other hand though, at least they've admitted that there's an issue. That's not something we always see from manufacturers. A lot of them just sort of walk away from issues and leave you to return the model if you want to, but that's it. Also, they've actually fixed the problem. They've had new parts made and they're going to supply these parts to anybody that needs them. Now that is great customer service. So it's a great outcome really to an unfortunate situation, which means if you've had a problem with your Cavalex 60, if it's too noisy, if it's grinding, you do now have a way forward. So great news, do contact the retailers if you need to. Up next then, just a very small update from Accurascale, who posted a bit of news on their new buck jumper locomotives. Specifically that the models are rolling off the production line and they're apparently going to arrive soon. With this post though are some awesome production photos showing the models as they're being painted and assembled. This is not something that we see dreadfully often, so it's really cool to actually get a look at what these models look like right now at the factory. And also, of course, this is just a great sneak peek of what the models will look like in terms of their paint job and the finish and the details and such. I love when manufacturers do this. Up next then, an update from Hornby, who up until recently have been really quiet on the news front. They haven't posted to their Engine Shed blog since October 2024, and I just assumed they cancelled this blog, stopped doing it, which would have been a real shame. But of course, just recently they have brought it back with a brand new post, showing of course that the blog has not been cancelled. So Hornby used to post this blog monthly, but sometimes it was fairly obvious that there was nothing really to say, no proper news. And so the blog would be full of waffle and it wouldn't really be worth anybody's time. So perhaps they're moving away from that monthly format to just making new posts when there's actually something to say, which I think makes a lot more sense. And this time, of course, there really has been something to say. So the biggest update really is news on the Saint class. They've revealed proper photos of an engineering running sample, which looks absolutely beautiful. I think for me the big standout feature would be the real copper chimney, which shines just beautifully. Really good choice to include that, I think. They've also revealed some of the model specs as well, which were missing during the initial announcement. So the model will have a plastic body, but it will have a die-cast footplate and chassis, which is a step up from Hornby's previous Great Western locos. It is also going to have interchangeable lamps. The word is that these will not be working lamps, which probably is for the best after that Black 5, but nice to have exchangeable lamps at least. It's going to have a 5-pole motor, a flickering firebox glow effect, crew figures included, nice to see that again from Hornby, and the retailer price is £211.49 for this, which is just a hair cheaper than Rapido's County. Still though, much more expensive than Dapol's 2800, even at the new price. So again, Dapol really leading the way in terms of value here. They've also revealed decorated samples of their new Pride livery Flirt. I did see a decorated Flirt at the NEC in November, but these photos give you a close look at what a massively detailed model this is. Yeah, they have done a cracking job on this thing, and of course it's good to see it progressing well. The sample, they say, is being reviewed, and then of course production can begin. Finally, they've revealed decorated samples of their new Great Northern J13. Again, we did see, I think it was the LNER Black version at the NEC in November, but now the other two have been added to the lineup. So at last we can see what the Great Northern Green is going to look like. Absolutely amazing, and it's quite strange seeing the lower part of the boiler on this model, because on Hornby's old J13 that was never the case. That area was completely filled in. So yeah, almost a little bit trippy seeing such a detailed J13 from Hornby after all these years, but yeah, they do look fantastic. They say that they've approved these samples and production has started, so I guess that means the countdown now begins. Up next then, let's talk about one or two models that have finally come into stock. First of all, Helgen's brand new Class 02 shunters in 00. These are now out. They are quite pricey, with an RRP of £169 or £143.65 at the retailers. And if you're interested in a review of one of these models to find out if they're worth it, please do comment down below and let me know. Affiliate links in the description too if you're interested. Revolution Trains supposedly have several 00 projects arriving this month as well. This includes the KSA wagons and also the IHA wagons. I've reviewed a Revolution model before and it was absolutely outstanding. Plus, of course, I saw all those samples back in November. These guys really know what they're doing, so check out these models if you're interested. Finally, Dapol's new Class 88 is in stock now as well, available only from Rails, and they've got the DCC sound versions in stock now as well. So there you have it then, folks. What an incredible month of news this has been. We've had announcements, we've had major updates on previously announced models, and so much to see this month. So yeah, once again, this industry is on fire, and I'm very, very glad to be along for the ride. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this news video. As always, if I've missed something, and that's possible this month because there has been so much to talk about, if I have missed something though and you think it deserved a mention, as always, comment down below, let me know about it, and I'll consider it for next time. But for now, once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you again very soon for another video. Alright, cheers folks.